How do you do? For years, busking on the tube was illegal, primarily because unsupervised performers posed safety concerns. Musicians were frequently asked to move on and could be fined up to $200. Stay away, please. If you don't come back, I won't have to come back for you. All you've got to do is stay away. Stay away, please. Give us a break. However, surveys of regular customers revealed that 80% actually wanted to hear good music while travelling on the Underground. Supported by changes in the law, London Underground, LU, devised a plan to allow buskers to perform legally at stations. In 2003, for the first time ever, buskers could entertain commuters without playing a constant game of cat and mouse with Underground staff or the police. It's May, and at Canary Wharf, the first stage of a 4-month trial busking scheme is about to begin. In true pop idol style, buskers have been invited to audition for the licenses. The scheme has been sponsored by a drinks company and is run by Pamela Stevenson Promotions and Automatic Management. Bob Morris oversees the auditions. What we've always planned, says Bob, is to bring in fresh, new talent. People who might have thought it was too risky to busk in the past because they kept getting moved on or even arrested. Nettie Rhodes is exactly the kind of performer LU wants. I'm a recorder player, she says. I believe you can play nearly any kind of music on a recorder. I'm busking because I want to show the world that if I'm standing on a street corner playing music, people can hear the recorder being played reasonably well. Plenty of people are better than me, but I'm a bit above primary school level. 45-year-old John Fitter is a professional busker. I shouldn't be nervous, but after busking for 15 years, I keep thinking, if I fail, I'll really beat myself up. I'm not as good as I hoped. Then what do I do for a living if I have to find regular employment? Musicians Sarah and Michael see busking as a chance to practice. We just want to be heard, says Michael. It's like a rehearsal, hopefully a paid one. Instead of practicing indoors, we can play outside and be heard. Stephen Heath learned to play the didgeridoo using his mom's old vacuum cleaner tube, but he's unsure if he can make a living from it. I honestly don't know. I've never busked for a long enough period to see if it pays. It's more of a hobby. I love it. I really do. A mix of novices and experienced buskers shows up for auditions, including those who belt out pop or blues. Martin Penny oversees the project for LU and has worked for several years to get a licensed busking scheme off the ground. It's a very emotional project because there's been a history of conflict between staff and buskers. In the past, busking has been illegal, and we've had to chase musicians away. It's been challenging to break that culture. For Errol Linton, an illegal busker with over $600 in outstanding fines, this new scheme is a relief. Sometimes they make you feel like you're the dirt on someone's shoe just for playing a bit of music. Meanwhile, Alison Gavin has never performed in public. I'm incredibly nervous. I only auditioned once for a band, and they didn't like me. That makes me even more anxious now. Bob, feeling a bit like Simon Cowell, quizzes one applicant. Where did you learn to play? At school, all right. What's your repertoire? Auditions wrap up for the day. John is worried. My biggest concern is that once we're official, people might think they're licensed and sponsored. They're doing fine, and so they give less money. Stephen's main worry is his performance under pressure. I got nervous and my mouth dried up. I couldn't get anything out, so I kept stopping and starting. I'm not sure if they really know what a didgeridoo is supposed to sound like, so maybe they didn't notice. Lou designates 12 stations for legal busking. Musicians can book 2-hour slots at one of 25 pitches. John, who has busked almost daily on the Underground for 15 years, finds himself at Piccadilly Circus, and for once he isn't breaking the law. I have to wear this ID so staff and police know who's official. If someone tries to take a pitch away from a licensed busker, you can see who's supposed to be here and who isn't. Nettie also receives a license and heads to Leicester Square for her first 2-hour session. Hello, busker, says a staff member. You'll see there's a pitch marked on the floor. Nettie finds the spot already occupied, but the other musician agrees to move on once he realizes it's a reserved pitch. Stephen chooses South Kensington, a big tourist hub, 7:54. I'm not sure if that's a good time slot, but I won't know till I try. Opera singer Angelina Kalahari auditioned at Canary Wharf a few weeks earlier and is now back to busk. All buskers face the challenge of persuading the public to drop money in the hat. Nettie, who has experience at Covent Garden Market, has a trick. I always start off by putting a couple of pounds into the case. It's psychological. If people see no money, they assume you're not good. If you put too much in, they think you already have plenty. You need a balance, enough so they think you're decent, but not so much they think you're rolling in it. Experienced busker John needs to make $11 a day to survive. He wonders if being licensed will affect his earnings and how tube customers will respond to these new authorized players. The busking trial has now run for 2 weeks, and licensed buskers are scattered across the network. Stephen is at South Kensington, which is not very busy, though he still attracts attention. One passerby praises his didgeridoo playing. He's not just making a noise, he's playing it properly, with rhythms. You can feel it like a pulse. There's a link here. How does a boy from Portsmouth learn to play the didgeridoo? It's brilliant. Meanwhile, a passenger is astonished John chooses busking as a career. Really, you do this for a living? Yes, John replies. I had an unusual situation that led me here, but once I started busking, I realized I could enjoy a simpler life. I can do what I like during the day because I don't need a lot of money, and I'm happier than people running around in suits. Happiness is the most important thing in life. Angelina at Canary Wharf is bringing in bigger crowds and seemingly bigger tips than the rest. It looks like she's pulled in more than I earn in a couple of weeks, says a wide-eyed observer. Nettie's gained a couple of young fans at Leicester Square and tallies up her earnings. 9.32 in about an hour. That's about average, $10 an hour. Not bad. Sarah and Michael, however, barely make enough for a couple of pints. Still, they're in good spirits. We relaxed more as we went along. It's good for confidence. We enjoyed it. Stephen calculates around $8 for his session. That's an average pitch, anywhere between $4 and $12 an hour. If I get closer to 12, I'm happy. The more I improve, the more I might earn. Meanwhile, John still has 2 hours left at Piccadilly's other pitch to boost his total. At the automatic office, the phones have just opened for buskers to book slots. Jerry Smith is in charge. Everyone wants Piccadilly Circus, Oxford Circus and Leicester Square. Bank, Bond Street, Canary Wharf, we have a list. We've approved 285 licenses so far, and we have 12 slots a week per pitch, so quite a lot of performers overall. Stephen grabs an evening slot at Piccadilly Circus, one of the busiest West End stations. It pays off. Meanwhile, John tries Westminster, but finds it empty. I won't get more than 11 pence here. I'll do the sensible thing and find a busier spot. Stephen has to repair his didgeridoo after heat and humidity cause cracks, affecting the back pressure needed for faster rhythms. In Australia, Aboriginal players sometimes soak the didgeridoo in water to seal the pores. I just pour water down mine sometimes. 10 weeks in, the trial is a success. Martin Penny wants to add more stations. He visits King's Cross to consult with station manager Andrew Anthony and licensed busker Dimitri van Zunenberg. There's been some spillover from buskers at other stations who have moved on to King's Cross, Martin notes. But given how well it's working at Piccadilly Circus, it makes sense to consider licensing here too. King's Cross is Dimitri's spiritual home for busking. Ever since I was a teenager, whenever I needed money, I busked here. It always looked after me. I once did my entire final recital practice for college down here. After testing the impact, they pick 3 possible busking spots. Martin begins the process of health and safety approvals for each. John, escaping the lonely pitch at Westminster, finds Bond Street more lucrative. Stephen's repairs hold up, and a crowd gathers at Piccadilly Circus. One passerby is so impressed, he ends up giving Stephen whatever change he has in his pocket. "You've made my day," he says. I was heading home, but I had to stop and listen. After a good night, Stephen heads home with a heavy bag. Probably around $50, he guesses. John, too, packs up after beating his $11 daily target. He'll take his pile of small coins to the bank eventually. For now, the future seems bright for John and the other 285 licensed buskers. The trial has gone well. Sponsorship looks set to continue, with more stations likely to be added. Whether there will be enough buskers and whether the quality of music can be maintained remains to be seen. For the moment, though, Tube customers won't be short of sounds on the underground. But a square car, too.